Welcome to Wake Up with Marci, a deep dive into self discovery. I'm your host, Marci Hopkins, and this is the space where we get real about life, transformation, and finding our true selves. Welcome to Wake Up with Marci, a deep dive into self discovery. I'm your host, Marci Hopkins, and this is the space where we get real about life, transformation, and finding our true selves. Whether you're navigating life transitions, parenting challenges, or simply seeking more joy and balance, you are in the right place. Through expert interviews, real life stories, and actionable advice, we're building a community where women can grow, heal, and thrive. And today I am so super excited to welcome Jenn Drummond, a mom of seven, a world record holding mountaineer. She is also an entrepreneur and author of the powerful new book, Break Proof. She's the first woman in history to climb the second highest peaks on every continent, a feat that mirrors the inner mountains she's overcome in her own life. From a near fatal car crash to building a life filled with purpose and adventure, Jenn now helps others move beyond survival and into a life of thriving. And we are so excited to have you here. Welcome, Jenn.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm telling you, you have overcome so much, and your accomplishments are just so admirable.
Mm.
And I'm grateful you're going to share such inspiration. And I know you're going to make a true impact.
Well, thank you. It's fun to share the story, and I'm just grateful I'm alive. Okay. Like that car accident almost took my life. It did not. And every day is a celebration of just being here. So
I
thank you. Thank
know.
you.
I know. So it is so interesting that such a traumatic event has taken you to where you are today. But let's go back. Let's go
Yeah.
back to that car accident and what happened? What happened during that time?
Yeah. I think the universe has a way of helping us along. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I was going through the motions of life, checking the
Mhm.
boxes, doing the things, kind of saying, like, once my kids get to college, then I'll do me again. But right now, I'm just in this season of motherhood, and this is what it looks like. And we have that. All of us have that, right? That
Yeah.
if then story. And
Yeah.
so for me, I was running a holiday party, Thanksgiving, and I was running it with another mom, and this other mom comes into the classroom, and she has a turkey sweater, turkey socks, and, like, a turkey hair tie for me, and she's all excited to share this thing with me, and I'm like, are you kidding me right now?" So I go into the bathroom, and I am fighting back tears, wondering what decisions I've made in my life that right now I'm putting on a turkey sweater, right? And I just was like, "Okay, like, this is just the season, like, we're gonna be
Mhm.
fine, like, it's okay, Jen."
Yeah.
And then a few weeks later, this car accident happens, and when you're in an accident like this, it's almost like time dilates, right? Like,
Mm.
I could see it happening, and it was
Mhm.
happening so fast, it was happening slow,
Yeah.
and the minute, like, I saw that it was gonna go, I just remember negotiating with death saying, like, "I promise, like, I'll do something good with my life, just let me live,"
Mhm.
and I lived.
So tell us what happened though. Like, I mean, how long were you in the hospital? What ended up happening to you physically and then mentally from this?
Yeah. So, like, the car collides with the semi truck. I tell myself, I'm like, the only way I'm gonna survive is if I surrender. And so I
Mhm.
need to just, like, roll with the car. I
Yeah.
did one roll, did a second roll, did a third roll, and then I'm like, I'm not having enough momentum to go end over end again. I'm gonna start doing these sideways rolls. So I did a whole bunch of sideways rolls and was hanging upside down in the median. And this guy is, like, running towards the car, and he's yelling, like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I didn't register that he was yelling, right? Like, you hear the sounds, but you're not connecting that that's to
Of
me.
course.
And then he peels back the windshield, and we connect eyes. He's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Oh, he's talking to me." And I remember looking at him thinking, I must not be okay, because that
Yeah.
guy's facial expression is telling me that I'm in a bad way.
Yeah.
And I was so afraid to look. at
Mhm.
myself
Yeah.
that I closed my eyes and I wiggled my fingers and toes,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "I can feel my fingers and toes." Like,
Okay.
I can feel my fingers and toes. I was so shocked that I could feel my fingers and toes, and the guy's like, "Okay, well, I think you're gonna be okay. We're just gonna sit here till the ambulance comes." So the ambulance came, I went to the hospital. I went home the same day.
Holy moly, are you
I
kidding
know.
me?
Bananas. Yeah,
That
100%. And so I go home the same day. I remember, like, getting dropped off by an Uber at my front door, and I remember, like, just staring at the front door, like, paying
yeah,
attention to the details that I'd never really paid attention to before, and then I opened the door to the house, and I
yeah.
just listened for a minute, right? And then I walk in and I'm just an observer in my own home, and I'm watching, like, 2 kids kinda argue, someone went by on rollerblades, there's pizza on the counter, like, there's all these things that normally I would have been in just mode, and right then, I'm just like, "Wow, like,
But wait
this
a
is
minute,
my
so
life."
they had no idea this happened to you?
We didn't tell no, they had no idea.
You didn't want to put them in fear.
So
So
what was really
yeah,
interesting
yeah,
is there's a car about 5 behind me on the highway,
yeah.
and they knew me. And so when they saw that I
Wow.
was going to the hospital, they actually drove to my house and talked to the babysitter and
Yeah.
said like, "Hey, she was in an accident, but it looks like she's gonna be okay. Do you guys need anything?" And the babysitter and they didn't tell the kids because the kids
Mhm.
didn't need to know and we didn't know what was going on. So
Yeah.
when I walked in, nobody had any idea what I had just gone through. And it was just, like,
Oh,
mind-blowing that
mind
I almost
blowing.
didn't get to see any of that again.
So it's like a real awakening that happened through
Very
this
much so.
process.
Very much so, because here's the
Yeah,
interesting thing, physically, I was fine.
yeah,
Mentally, I was not because I'm like, "Okay, my car's totaled. I'm gonna have
yeah.
to go get a new car." So I took an Uber down to the dealership and I was like, "Hey, I know my car's gonna be totaled. I need a new one." And they're like, "Okay, well, let's help you get a new one. We have this one right here." So I'm filling out all the paperwork and then they hand me the keys and I'm like, "Oh, I gotta drive."
Oh,
Because I had taken an Uber so far, right? And so I'm
yeah.
sitting in this parking lot with this car and for 45 minutes I'm having a conversation with myself. I'm like, if I don't start driving now, it's only gonna get harder. Blah, 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 blah. So I'm like, I'm visualizing what it would be like to be at home and safe and driven. Like I'm going through the whole thing. And finally I get enough courage to just start driving. It's a 35-minute drive to my house from this dealership.
Yeah,
I got home, I took a nap. I
yeah.
was
You were
so
physically exhausted,
exhausted. I was
mentally. Yeah,
mentally
mentally.
exhausted, and it took me about 6 months of driving where I had to
Mhm.
swallow my heart when I passed the semi and all that kinda stuff until I realized, "Okay, I'm okay. Like, I
Yeah.
got through this."
So you had major PTSD, which I'm not surprised by any means. Did you get any support, any therapy through this?
I mean, I did meet with a therapist just because, I mean, there it was a line in the sand moment. Does that make
Yeah,
sense? Like,
yeah,
my
yeah.
life could not go back to the way that it was,
No.
and, like, I just remember having a meeting with my kids even. I said, "Hey, mom is gonna start doing life a little bit differently, and it's gonna shift everything for everybody, and so we just need to have conversations about what's working and what's not, and we're gonna
Mhm.
figure this out together, but there's some things I wanna do, and we're gonna do 'em." Mm,
So, and is this where like the 6 months, like you're healing, you're talking you because you were saying it took you about 6 months to drive comfortably. So we'll give that frame.
yeah.
Now, are you having conversations with yourself and are you talking to God during this time and like really going within to try to figure out like why did this happen and what needs to look different for me?
Oh, 100%. Like, I
Mhm.
was journaling and documenting and because I had lost myself. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't if you asked me, like, what my favorite
Prior to
meal
the
was.
accident, you lost yourself.
Yeah, like, if you woulda asked me, like, what my favorite meal was, I would've been like, "Whatever, I don't care," or,
Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
was just so in the mode, and I'm like, "No, actually, we're each placed here by God with
Mhm.
a mission and likes and dislikes and preferences and things, and my job is to live that version of me, not to water it down, not to apologize for it, not to pretend it doesn't exist, but to live that version of who I am. And I need to discover who that is.
So, Jen, there's a lot of women out there that, well, let's hope they don't have to go to
Please don't.
through what you went through to have some sort of awakening. But, they're like, but I have to take care of my kids. I can't really focus on myself. I don't even know who I am. Like I too lost myself, right? And I had
Mhm.
to go through some really difficult things myself to have that awakening and start not apologizing for needing to feed my own soul.
Right.
So how can you encourage someone out there that is like feeling so lost, feeling guilty if they ask to do anything for themselves? And how do they rediscover themselves?
Yeah. Okay. Well, one, it's a process
Yeah.
and it's a decision you need to make every single
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like, oh, I'm
Mhm.
going to do this and then you let it sit. It is every day I'm going to do this and learn something about myself. The biggest permission slip I gave myself, which really turned the whole story on its side, was my kids are watching.
Yeah.
And do I want my daughter to have my life? And if
Yeah.
I don't want my daughter to have my life, what do I need to do so that she feels empowered to do what she desires because I'm showing her what it means to do what I desire? And
Mhm.
so that was really my check-in, right? Are
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
kids gonna wanna have a life like mine, whatever that looks like for them? And then just starting to get curious again
Yeah.
and ask questions. And, there's this book called The Artist Way. Have you
Mhm.
ever heard of it?
I haven't heard of that one.
Okay, it's a journaling, like 12-week journaling process,
Mhm.
and every day you have a journal prompt, and then every week you're supposed to take yourself on a date.
I like that.
It was really interesting because I'm like,
Yeah.
"Wow, I don't even know what I would wanna do." And
Yeah.
one of my dates with myself was literally listening to music on my car and driving and singing out loud,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it was so simple and just, like,
Small and
playful and
simple. This
fun.
doesn't have to be big. Yeah.
Right.
I I too, like you say, get curious. And I think sometimes it's hard when you lose yourself to
Mhm,
get curious. I
mhm,
remember just someone may relate to this out there. Like I'm with a guy, right? And I've got my life going on, and we end up breaking up. This was before marriage, before kids and everything. And I remember I was with this person and they were like, "Well, what is your passion?" And I couldn't even answer that, right? Because I was just going through the motions of life. Yeah, and I didn't even know where to begin. So I know that you have gone through many processes to make this happen for you.
mhm.
So what are just like maybe 3 things that someone, even 2, 1, that they could just right now, just start?
Yeah. Okay, this is gonna sound so silly, but I bought a pack of pens, and every day I would journal with a different color pen
Yeah.
until I found the color pen that I wanted to journal with. And it was funny because, like, when I wrote and read, I'm like, "Oh, I feel like I'm always correcting myself." When I
Ah,
write in orange, I'm like,
yeah.
"It just feels, like, too fluffy," or whatever. And so, like, for me, the color was purple, and it was just, like, by trial and error and letting it go. And then what I did 1 month is, like, every week we would go to a different restaurant.
Yeah.
I'm like, "What is our favorite Italian restaurant in town?" Or, "What is our favorite pizza place?" And so we would try all the pizza places and be like, "Okay, this is my favorite pizza place," and, like, just those little
That's
teeny tiny
fun.
things, and
That's
it's fun.
discovery. Yeah.
Right.
I love that. And what did you discover about yourself? What would
Yeah.
fulfill you?
I realized, like, I like to be outdoors,
Mhm.
and for me, I like movement. So,
Mhm.
I think when I would get stuck on things, I would just double down and go harder. And now when I'm stuck on something, I give myself permission to just take a lap around the neighborhood. And that lap around the neighborhood physically removes me from the situation, mentally removes me from the situation, and just allows me to take a few deep breaths and come back.
Yeah, and there is something about just being out in nature. I now, when I get out, I really embrace like walking my dogs and listening to the birds and really like looking at the sky, looking at the trees, taking it all in. And just really praying in that moment, is there something that I need to know right now? So, because when you're quiet and you're more centered like that, you're going to get those intuitive hits,
Mhm. Definitely.
right? But I know
Yeah,
what you're saying too. Like, even if something feels very stressful, overwhelming, or you're upset about something, that really makes a difference. Like, taking that beat. So then you are responding instead of reacting to life.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Well, you decided to climb mountains.
I
So,
know, isn't that funny? I know. So here's the deal. So 2019 is the year of my bucket list. Like,
yeah.
why was I saved? What am I here? Like that I gave myself an entire year to just be curious and like learn about myself. And so then at the end of 2019, I realized in 2020 I was turning 40. And so when I was looking at my bucket list of all the things that I got curious about, I'm like, "Oh, I want to do something epic for my 40th birthday." So when I
Mm,
was looking at that list, I'm like, I'm going to climb a mountain. I live in Park City, so I'm surrounded by mountains. So that was on my list. And I kept thinking it's only going to get harder as I get older. So
yeah.
let's do this mountain thing. And so I asked some friends, I'm like, hey, if you could climb one mountain in the whole world, just one, what would you climb? And a handful said this mountain named Ama de Blanc, which I had never heard of it, but it's the
Yeah.
Paramount Pictures logo. So they're
Ah,
like, every single time you go to a movie with your kids, you can be like, I climbed that mountain and it's located in Nepal. It's like gorgeous,
yeah.
all those things. I'm like, oh, this would be an awesome 40th birthday climb.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how all that got started.
Okay, so let's talk about, you've made this decision.
Yeah.
What was it like sharing with your family, the expectations of your family? And did you have guilt about it?
Yes. It's not without guilt at first.
Mhm.
Right, for sure. And then it's like anything, you get a little more comfortable with it, and then you realize, "Oh, even though I'm not there for every single detail, other people get to step up and be a part of that story too." And now my kids have more people helping them
Yeah.
become adults versus just myself.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's always these different stories that you can write about what's happening, and it's up to you to write the story that puts you in power of your narrative.
So how did your children respond in the beginning versus today? And how many years? So, right, 5 years?
Okay, so I'm gonna like everybody was fun with the curious thing because we made it a family thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
what's your favorite color pen or what's your favorite pizza or whatever, right? That was a big whatever. Then when I set this goal to climb a mountain, everybody had a goal that they were going after too. So it just looked different for
Oh,
each of us.
great. I like that.
Yeah. So then we all had something. Well, when I was training for this mountain, COVID enters the scene.
Mm.
Right. So
Mhm.
now I'm not
Mhm.
training to go anywhere and I'm homeschooling all the kids because the world shut down. And during a homeschooling session where I'm doing that parent pep talk that we do, one of my sons was struggling. And I'm like, we do hard things. You've got this. And he looks at me and he goes, if we do hard things,
Yeah.
why are you climbing a mountain called I'm a Dumb Blonde instead of a real mountain like Mount Everest? And I'm like, one, it's Ama de Blanc, not I'm a dumb blonde, but thank you. And you know what? Finish your homework. We'll look at Everest. And so, I mean, it was like
That's
that
so
conversation, right? And so then he goes to bed, and I kind of have like a little bug in me. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to climb Everest and I'm going to show him whatever Everest is, we're capable of summiting. So I called the coach, and the coach is like, yeah, I can get you ready. You used to be an athlete, no problem. And I told my kids, and my kids were so excited because my mom's gonna climb Mount Everest, right? Like, it was
yeah.
this huge thing. So all of a sudden, I was climbing Mount Everest because my kids were holding me accountable.
Yeah. What was the
Yeah.
age span
So
for
my
the
oldest
kids?
right now is 18 and my youngest are 12.
Okay.
So at the time that I started this, the oldest was 13.
And who did you have to support you? Because some of us don't really have many people that support us. Husbands working all the time, maybe divorced, whatever the case may be. How can you get the support that you need? Like, maybe you feel guilty about asking for that. There's a lot of guilt around here, Jen.
There is a lot of guilt around here, right? Like, let's get rid of that story, everybody who's
Yeah.
listening. I am very blessed in that fact that I have a nanny that's been with us for 18 years,
Mhm.
right? So she's family. My
Yeah, I love
family is
that.
super supportive, so I'm very
Yeah,
lucky there. I got very early involved in, like, hiking communities and, like, running clubs
yeah,
because those people are training for big things too. So when you set a huge goal, like an Everest like goal,
yeah.
you have to build community. And
Yeah,
so
you do.
it's just not an option. Big mountains take big teams and it takes a
Mhm.
big team to make it happen. So
Mhm.
you like the nice thing is like when you're doing something big, people love to be a part of it,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
And
let's
so that was very
yeah,
helpful.
that is really helpful, and let's talk about the people that we surround ourselves with,
Mhm. Yeah.
because that's huge.
Huge. Well, I'll tell you, my mom was not my first phone call.
Yeah,
Right? When I said, "Hey, I'm gonna
yeah,
climb Everest," if I called my mom, she would've been like, "And no, you're not."
right.
But I called the coach,
Yeah.
then the coach introduced me to a couple of people who had climbed Everest before. So then
Mhm.
I met with them, I went for a hike with them, I'm like, "Okay, they're normal." So it
Mhm.
normalized this thing that I was gonna do. I trained for a while to build up my confidence so that when I did tell my mom and others, there
Yeah.
was less space for negotiation because I was further down the road.
Love that. So you got yourself all prepped
Yeah.
and prepared, like, what is going to happen, and then it was easier to have those discussions and not be talked out of it.
Correct, correct.
Yeah. So how do you get rid of, like, somebody that is toxic in your life? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, you squeeze them out,
Yeah,
right? Like,
right?
I mean, I think the most important thing we have is our energy, and so we
Mhm.
really need to pay attention to what's charging it and what's draining it,
Yeah.
and things that are draining it are, like, need to be dialed out.
So I like to say, like, right, you're on a phone call and, well, first of all, somebody's number pops up. How do you feel about it when that
Right.
number pops up? And then after you're on the call with that person, how do you feel?
Mhm.
Have they brought you down or have they lifted you up? Because there are people that are just so heavy, and those are the ones, I don't care how long you've known them, that you've got to try to create the distance or let them go.
Oh, it's terrible. I had a friend break up in the last year.
Yeah.
That is a hard breakup.
It's hard, and
It
there's
is,
grief,
but it
and
was
then
just like,
yeah,
I don't have the energy to be the power bank of this
yeah,
relationship anymore.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so I just started gradually filling my time with other people and other activities, and I want that person to have the best life ever. It just can't be with me.
yeah, absolutely. And I will say, when you make space for other people, they're going to come into your life.
They do. I mean,
Absolutely.
tons. It's been such a fun
Mhm.
adventure meeting new people and a different side of
Yeah,
myself.
exactly. So let's talk about some of these great tools that you've created, the trigger meditation and the
Yeah.
grump dump journal. I love those things. Tell us about those.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the Grump Dump Journal. So the Grump Dump Journal happened because I had a horrible experience on a climb. And when I came back, one of my teammates passed away in an avalanche. So it was a
Mm,
very heavy experience. When
yeah,
I came back in the United States, I was like, I'm not ready to go home. I need to unpack a whole bunch that happened here. So
yeah.
I took out a journal and I did what I call a grump dump. I dumped every piece of grumpy feeling onto paper. And actually, each piece of paper got its own story. So
Mhm.
then it allowed me to organize the stories into categories of here's bad things that happen that I can control. Here's bad things that happen that I can't control. And so
Mm,
then I could start going through those like experiences and be like, okay, what would I do different to not have that show up again? Or here's things that I can't control. There's no point in putting energy there because there's nothing I can do. And so that grump dump journal I still do today. And it just allows me to put everything in one space
yeah.
and allows me to actually look back too. So here's the thing. When you like you put it all in there and
Yeah.
then a month later you can look back and some of those things that were grumpy
Mhm.
actually like put me on a new path.
They put you on a new path. That's
right?
right.
And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it was grumpy in that moment, but I needed it to be grumpy to pivot to the left, or I needed to be grumpy to pivot to the right." So the
Yeah.
grump dump journal for me is like, I don't want it in my head. Like, I want it on paper because then it's like it's been acknowledged, it has space. Now I can look at it and start analyzing it and fixing the things.
And
So
guys,
I love
listen, it's so true. Like, you don't put it on paper and get it out of yourself. I mean, it is just eating away at you.
it does, it
Just stays
floats.
in your head over and
Yeah,
over, that loop.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that's the grump dump journal.
Mhm.
And, more often than not, I can go back on that thing and be like, "Oh, that failure
Yeah.
wasn't so bad. That failure actually introduced me to this, why, this, and this. So I'm okay." And I think
Yeah.
it's good for us to train ourselves to look at those grumpy moments
Yeah.
again, because then when they happen, we have a story of, "Oh, that was bad in the beginning, but then we saw how it played out and it turned out to be good." And it gives us, like, more courage to face those activities.
I totally get that, like, with my daughter and just how I think today, because I used to be a victim of my circumstances, right? Life is happening to me. It's so awful. Nothing ever goes right. But when you start looking at the things that didn't work out for you, or you go through that difficult time, it really is how you look at it, because it's a learning experience. It takes you to in a different direction that's better for you. And then it's so, and I tell my daughter that, she's in college, something bad happens, and it's like, okay, it's bad, but what are you learning through this process?
Yeah. Right,
Right? Yeah,
right.
so I love that. So trigger meditations.
Yeah, so trigger meditations, I do them still, right? Because
Yeah.
I think we just get on autopilot,
Oh,
and a
yeah.
trigger meditation allows us to interrupt ourselves from being ourselves. And so
Mhm.
for me, and I change it up because I get bored. And so for me, like right now, my trigger meditation is every single time I touch a doorknob,
Yeah.
it's a cue to pause and ask
Oh,
myself, am I doing something I want to be doing? Or am I doing something out of habit or things like that?
yeah.
And it just is a check-in, right? And
I
so,
like that.
yeah, we have a pantry. So, like, all of a sudden, do you ever find yourself in the pantry and you're like, "Why am I in here? I'm not even hungry." But, like,
100%.
when I open the door, I'm like,
Yeah.
"Wait, am I in here because I'm bored? Am I in here because I'm hungry?"
Mhm.
Um, when I'm, like, running out the door right before I get in the car and I, like, touch the doorknob, I'm like, it gives me a second to pause. Do I have everything I need? Where am I going? Is there anything else I should bring with me so I'm more efficient on this trip? Or am I gonna run out the door 10 times today? Or,
I
just things
like
like
that.
that.
I like
Yeah,
that because it's really bringing you present.
right.
Yeah, you're grounding yourself in that moment and just, like, really taking a look. This is what I'm doing, and I love, am I doing this because it makes me happy, or because I have to, or I'm just, like, on autopilot, like you said? And I mean, those are really, really great things to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. And
No,
so I'm sorry?
no, I just think it's
Oh,
really helpful to just interrupt the pattern of being yourself. Because when you
interrupt the
interrupt the
pattern.
yes, break the pattern and be like, "Oh, okay, I wanna show up more intentionally. Here's how I do it. I interrupt myself and make sure I'm showing up intentionally."
So, okay. So with these major accomplishments you've made, and you were talking about, you're trying to teach and empower your children.
Mhm.
How are they responding now 5 years later, and how many mountains has it been?
Yeah. Okay. So let's bring the audience up a little bit. So
Yeah.
I was climbing, I'm a dumb blonde. That
Yeah.
got up to Everest. Everest, then I got up to a world record. So
Yeah.
my coach was like, yes, I think you should be the first woman to climb the second highest peak on each of the 7 continents. Um, that record took me what we thought I finished June 1st of 2023. I had
Mhm.
climbed all 7 mountains, but when I registered it with Guinness, they said, "Actually, there's a dispute on what's a continent, and so we want you to climb 2 more mountains," because sometimes Indonesia is considered a part of Australia instead of Asia.
Okay.
Okay, so that one, I'm like, "I've
Okay.
never met that, but okay." And
Uh-huh.
then they wanted me to climb a mountain in Europe in case we took Russia out of Europe. I don't know, whatever. So, I
Interesting.
had 2 more mountains to do. So, I just finished all of those mountains, um, October 9 of 2024. So
Mhm.
9 mountains for 7 continents, and, 3 of those mountains, it took me twice because it just
To
wasn't
make
safe
it.
conditions, and I had to go back and do things like that. So that pursuit took me almost 5 years, a full 4 years, and my kids were a part of that front row the
Yeah.
entire time of
Yeah.
the failures, the setbacks, the challenges, the things that went well and the things that didn't. And it was so fun because that's life.
Yeah.
Right? It
Yeah.
is messy.
So
It's
many
not this,
lessons.
like, perfect thing. It's this,
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes you have to climb down to climb up and all those
Yeah.
stories.
Mhm.
So,
I
yeah,
just wanna take a moment here, Jen. 9 mountains.
9 mountains.
I
I
mean,
know.
most people are like Mount Everest and they're doing it, right? So, and I'm a dumb blonde. I love that because that my husband works for Paramount, so I'm going to think about that every single time
I love it.
now.
I love it. I love it.
So that is so fantastic. So that was 24, your last mountain.
Yeah.
What has been happening in the last year for you?
Yeah, I wrote a book that came
Mm,
out, that Breakproof, 7 strategies to build resilience and achieve your life goals. Basically, I take the reader to the mountain, highlight a lesson from that mountain that's played out in my personal life, my business life, and my climbing life, so that people can identify those mountains in their own lives
yeah.
for whatever pursuit that they're pursuing. So that's been fun, right?
Yeah.
Launching a book, speaking on stages, traveling, meeting
Yeah.
book clubs, things like that. Um, Still speaking on stages today. That's probably my
Yeah.
favorite part of this whole thing.
Yeah, I love it too. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm getting more and more into that, which is fantastic. So it's so important because every time you get up on one of those stages, you are really making an impact.
definitely. Definitely,
Mhm.
definitely. We all have a mountain to climb,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's just metaphorical for most of us. I don't recommend the physical ones unless you really like mountaineering.
yeah. I always say, like, if things aren't going right, one of the things I do say is maybe you're climbing the wrong mountain. Uh, do you ever have any idea around writing about your experiences on those mountains?
Yeah, I think I will. It's
Mhm,
interesting with my kids at the ages they are right now,
mhm.
they're busy. Like
Yeah,
when they were younger, it was a little more controlled chaos. I
yeah,
have a house full of teenagers right now.
yeah,
And so a lot of discipline takes 30-minute explanations as to why. And
yeah,
so I think I'm just in that season again. And when they start going to college, then I'll have a little more time to do that. But I don't
yeah.
want to miss these moments.
No, I totally get that. I
Yeah.
totally get that, and I just for some reason, I envision, like, you could do, like, 9 individual short, even ebooks
Right.
about these
Right.
experiences on these mountains, which, I mean, I can only imagine the stories you have to tell from that.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Yeah,
Unbelievable,
unbelievable.
and I mean, you must connect very differently to people going through something like that.
Yes, very much so, right? You're in high stakes environments, doing high stakes activities
Mhm.
that your life is on the line. And
Yeah.
so like you're trusting each other with each other's lives and doing these
Mm.
pursuits together. It's a bond that I don't know how you forge otherwise.
I know, and that brings me to vulnerability because
Mhm.
that's huge for me. I think a lot of people feel that being vulnerable is weak.
Mm,
And
mhm.
honestly, in my opinion, and what I have found through my healing process is being vulnerable is the strongest thing I've ever done. And it
Totally.
actually shows that you're aware of self, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so what is your take on vulnerability and how have you learned about this through your process, through your journey?
Yeah. No, vulnerability is just ownership of who you
Mhm.
are and
Mhm.
accepting yourself as a human that's not perfect,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's just like perfect is an illusion that does not exist. And so understanding that, hey, I'm Jen. I'm 5'5", 115 pounds. I will climb this mountain with you, but I'm not carrying a whole bunch of weight up it because I don't have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
reason to shame that, guilt that, make you feel bad about that. That's a fact. But I
Mhm.
can shovel, I can tell jokes, I can add value these other ways and this is who I am. So when
Yeah.
you're in these environments, like there is no space to pretend you're something you're not. Everybody just has to be like, here's what I am, here's what I'm capable of, here's what I'm not capable of, because otherwise you're putting everybody's life on the line.
So just to take that into real life,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about like someone in work, someone that's, on the PTO or volunteering at school. Like we try to be everything
Right.
because we think people are going to think less of us.
Right.
But the reality is, you show up with your strengths and you celebrate other people's strengths and you make a strong team because you're not good at everything. And
Yeah.
that's what you've got to realize and accept. And that's okay. And it's
Right.
just being okay with that and going back to that perfectionism. And a lot of that has to do with how we were raised or how someone, talked to us or trauma. And like for me, like I just thought I had to be perfect all of the time to get validated
Yeah.
because I didn't know how to validate myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. I
And
mean,
yeah,
even me, like I remember like, there's Pinterest moms out there. I'm so jealous of you Pinterest moms. Like, your skills are amazing. I am not a Pinterest mom. So when I
yeah,
show up at the PTA with like brownies from the grocery store, I'm doing the best I can. And I'm so glad that you have special frosting and things that are all piped into place. Like, it's
yeah,
beautiful. And I'm
yeah.
going to celebrate you, but celebrate me in a different way.
And that's so true, Jen, because I will say I felt so judged, and I'm going to get real here. Being a mom, being on that blacktop, participating in elementary school, like I felt more judged in that environment than in most environments that I've been in.
Yeah, isn't it crazy?
It really is. And, I just would like to say, like, to the ladies out there, like, we're all at the same place, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Maybe you were an executive in work, or maybe you were a secretary. It doesn't matter. We're all showing up kind of at the same place. We're
We are.
moms, we've got our kids, we need the support, we want to be there for them. Now we're volunteering so we can be a part of women that are doing the same. And like you said, like I would have been the one that is bringing the brownies from the grocery store. Don't look down. Fantastic. You can bake a brownie, right? But I can do a lot of things a lot better than you can creatively, so allow me to do what I do great and let's come together. So I guess I really want to talk about that because there's so many women that are out there that are competing with one another.
And
And
we
I
need to be
have
celebrating with one another.
and I have found a community of women that we are celebrating. I didn't know it
Mhm.
was possible to not be in competition. And it's a beautiful thing when you start really getting behind one another and celebrating one another.
Oh, it's awesome,
It
right?
is,
Such a
right?
gift. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's such a gift.
And don't you like, I won't speak for you, Jen. I'll ask you, like, did that shift for you when like this major catastrophic thing happened? God stepped in, you started looking at things differently, you started doing the inner work. Did you find that you became different with others? You were better at celebrating others?
100%.
Yeah.
Yes, all day long. When I learned that my path is different than yours on
Yeah.
purpose, not better, not worse,
Yeah.
different. And so let's all just celebrate who we are and
Mhm.
elevate each other because
Yeah.
that energy connects.
Yeah. So let's talk about someone out there that feels stuck
Yeah.
and they want to start their own self-discovery.
Mhm.
What would you say to them right now?
It starts with being kind to yourself.
Mhm.
Right? Like really being kind and curious and be like, "Oh, this is unique about me." Right?
Mhm.
I'm a
Mhm.
morning person or I'm a night person or I am this or that and just really celebrating what makes you you
Mhm.
because when you learn to celebrate that in yourself, it's easy to find in others.
Yes, especially our children. Our children are not us, they're individuals too.
Mhm.
So I think that's really, really important. And, for those out there that are just and on autopilot, like you said, what's a couple of steps that you could give them to right now? I know you shared some steps earlier, but can you give us just a couple of other things that we could incorporate right now?
Yeah. Okay, so I have 2 things that I do religiously.
Mhm.
1, I live by the short side of a red light, okay? Like, so every time I hit this light red, and it
Yeah.
used to drive me bananas. And then finally one day I'm like, "The light doesn't care that it's red, only I care that it's red." And so I'm gonna turn this light into my gratitude light. So every
Aw.
single time I hit that light red,
Yeah.
everybody in my car out loud starts saying things that they're grateful for. It could be the sky's blue, it could be I have my homework done, it could be we're going out to dinner, it could be whatever, right? And
Mhm.
so, like, getting into that mode of gratitude.
Love gratitude, Jen.
Love
Life-changing.
gratitude. Yes, and, like, okay, so you can't do a gratitude list at night, or you don't have time to do that, like, every red light, just start
Yeah.
listing it, and that gets that momentum moving,
Yeah.
right? So I
Yeah.
think that's a big piece. Another big one for us is we call it the toothbrush talk. Okay. This
Mhm.
happened because when I'm on the mountains and I'm brushing my teeth, I don't have a mirror and I just get to look at the world and think it's absolutely stunningly beautiful. When
Yeah.
I came home from my climbs and I'd wake up and brush my teeth and I'd look in the mirror, I realized that I would start picking on myself. Like, oh, you look tired, or you didn't sleep well enough, or like, is your face breaking out, or like silly things that are not helpful. And all of a sudden I caught myself. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I need to be my biggest cheerleader. And
Yeah.
so during toothbrush time, which is those 2 minutes that you brush in the morning at night, we have a rule that you're only allowed to say positive things about yourself.
Mm,
And it
love
sounds so
that.
silly and so ridiculous, but it's a way to start
No.
the day and end the day on a positive, and you are your biggest cheerleader.
You are your biggest cheerleader. I absolutely love that. When I brush my teeth, Jen, I try to find other things that I can do so I'm not wasting that time.
Oh,
It's
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's terrible. So I am going to absolutely start to incorporate that. I mean, I have many things that I do, but every one of these little acts that I have included in my daily routines are life-changing, and I love that one. So thank you for that. I am definitely gonna start that.
Yay, good, perfect.
Yay. So tell us, listen, I'm sure it's everywhere, but, break proof,
Yep.
um, where can we find it? Where can we find you? And also your podcast, Seek Your Summit.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so you can find me at jenndrummond.com. In fact, if your audience wants to text the word Everest to the number 33777, you're going to get a video of the Milky Way galaxy going over Everest Base Camp. And anytime like my life gets overwhelming or I get caught in this narrative that keeps me limited, I look at that video and I just remind myself that we're on this big magical planet to have fun. So look at that video, get out of your head and live your life.
Mm,
Follow on social, say hi. I love connecting with people. So do not be shy.
okay. 33777, because
Yep.
I'm doing this
Yep.
because when we feel overwhelmed or we don't want to react, right? And we need to calm our nervous system to look at that and do a short breathing exercise.
Yes.
That alone is life changing.
Yep.
And if you do that daily, I mean, that is fabulous, Jen. So thank you again. I am texting you.
Perfect.
Look
Thank
at
you. Have a
that.
great day.
So I just want to really thank you, Jen, for coming on Wake Up and sharing your heart and your wisdom and your journey. Because I know so many people need to hear these conversations to feel empowered, to feel that they too can do it, whatever that is, whatever mountain that is for them in their lives. So thank you again, Jen, for coming on. And I want to thank all of the listeners out there for tuning in. If this episode has moved you, inspired you, or given you a fresh perspective, please share it, leave a review, And please subscribe. And you can watch this episode on YouTube or listen on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, remember self-discovery starts with one honest step, and you are worth the journey. Wake up to all of your possibilities. All right, guys, see you next Thursday.